We're finally ready to start putting stuff together here. And so that's what we're going to do now. So go ahead and click new up here, but instead of choosing a part, we're going to choose an assembly. So we're in metric. I want a standard assembly, an IAM file in metric, and I click create. And the way an assembly works is you take the individual parts that you've made and you add them to your assembly, and then you constrain them against each other. So we want to double check and look at what we've got here. You should have 9 parts. You can ignore drawing test and hand sketch there. And so you can double check that you've got all those parts. Make sure you made the key, which we didn't have a tutorial for, but it's pretty straightforward. And then we're going to place those parts. So you click place up here and you'll see that opens up. I'm in the wrong folder. Make sure you've got the right folder. And then we're going to grab those things. So I'm going to take pulley wheel here. I'm going to start, the reason I'm starting with pulley wheel is I'm thinking about what's the most complicated placement that I have to do. And I want to get those done early. And then things like the base plate and the collar, those are going to be pretty easy to just add at the last minute. So we get my pulley wheel here, and I'm just going to left click to place that. And you see I get this shadow one. It will let me, I can place a whole bunch of them, right? I can left click again before I escape out. Now I've got 2. I don't really want 2, so I'm going to Control Z that one away. Now we only have 1 part there. An assembly with 1 part is, not very interesting. So I'm going to go and I'm going to place my key and escape out of that. And I'm going to place my axle. And I just want 1 of each of those. So let's see. What we're going to do is we're going to put that key into the axle, just like we would if we were manufacturing, right? The way this works is we put the key in here, then you can slide the axle on onto that. In Ventura, it doesn't matter that how you're actually manufacturing it. I just think it's easy to think about it that way. So we're going to constrain. And all that means is we're going to put surfaces and define where surfaces mesh. So there are 3 degrees of freedom in terms of the relationship of these 2 pieces to each other. They can slide this way, slide up and down, or back and forth. And so we have to constrain them. And so you can either constrain them so that they mate, in other words, that they press against each other, or that 2 surfaces are flush with each other. We're going to mate this surface here with that surface down there. And you might find yourself doing a lot of zooming because sometimes you have to zoom in to get the actual surface that you want. So we're going to mate. I'm going to click 1 surface and you see how it holds onto that surface. And then I'm going to click this other surface. And you hear that noise. That means that that was a legitimate constraint. But it's not constrained yet. As long as it's got those arrows there, it's not constrained. And so you have to actually click apply, and that goes away. Now I'm going to cancel out of this just to show you what this means. Now I can move this, and you can see I can move it, but I can't move it away from that plane. Okay, so now what I want to do is make sure I can't slide it that way. So I'm going to constrain again, and I'm going to mate. I'm going to mate this end here, and I'm going to swing it around, and I'm going to mate it with that surface right there. I got my little bloop, and I click apply. Now, I said we had 3 degrees of freedom, so we still have 1 left. If I escape out of this, I should still be able to move this in 1 direction. And I need to get it so that that surface, so it can't slide that way. So I'm going to go to mate again. I'm going to choose that. And I've got to swirl around to get this other side over here. And I choose that. And I apply. And that is fully constrained now. I don't have anything that tells me that, but I can try to wiggle it and it won't move. Okay. And generally, when you've got 3D objects, it takes 3 constraints to keep them from moving, unless you've got an axial constraint, which is actually 2 constraints built into one. And we'll see that in just a second here. So let's do an axial constraint. So here we want this guy to mate with this. And see that long green arrow? That tells us that we're choosing an axle to constrain with. I want the axis of, axis, not axle. I want this axis, this little green line there, to match with that little green line there. And I want them to mate. So I'm going to choose this. I'm going to look at this. You see how I do that? That is not the axis. That's just the circle. I want the axis, the green center line. So I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to choose that. And just to show you again, oh, I forgot to click apply. That will get you every time. I do that all the time. So you got to, after you hear the boop, you got to, you actually have to click apply. And now if I try to move this, you can see I can move it along that axis, but it still moves. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to get that face there matched up with that face. Because remember, our key was just as wide as our pulley. So in this case, I don't want to mate them. I want to make them flush with each other. Okay, so I'm going to choose the flush. And I'm going to choose this surface here and that surface there. And I'm going to apply. Okay, so there we are. We've got those parts all constrained with each other. And that's looking pretty good. And I can go over here and it will tell me which constraints I have. And you see these, how they light up. So that can be really useful. If you mess up, sometimes I'll just go back and clear out all of them. If I start to get confused about what I've got constrained and what's not, sometimes it's easier to start from the beginning. But if I wanted to delete, I can always right-click that and I can delete any of those constraints. But I think we're in good shape right now. And so I'm going to continue to build this with the different parts. So let's try placing our braces. So here's one that we're actually going to need 2. So I've got 1 brace and 1 brace. And escape out of that. This one I'm going to constrain with my axes again, or axis. So I want this axis. Be a little tricky sometimes to find those axes. That axis with that one. Okay. And because remember that axis is sort of it's really 2 dimensions. So remember to click apply. And then I want this face of my little collar indent to match with that face there. And again, I want that to be a flush. I'm going to scroll in here and make that fit with that. Probably should have done the bushings first, but you see I've got a little gap there. And then I want another axis mate. See if I can get that axis to appear. Come on. Where are you? Let's see, I'll do this one first. I'm going to cancel out of that. Sometimes you accidentally pick one and it won't let you pick an axis if you've already chosen something. Come on. There we go. All right, so it's gone the other way there. So I want to flip that around. Got that. Where did that go? That worked. It just I knew I was looking for the button to flip that around, and there we go. And I just want to double check that because, yeah, there we go. So we're on that axis. This time I want a mate between this surface right there and this surface there. So sometimes you have to kind of move this around just so you can see the surface that you want. So this time I'm going to mate these. So let's see if I can. You can also play with visibility, but I prefer not to if I can avoid it. So I've got that surface, and I want that surface. And I apply that. Okay, now those are constrained around the axis. Now I'm going to make them constrained with each other. So I'm going to make a flush constraint, this surface and that surface, because they're both going to need to be on the base plate. So I hadn't done anything yet there that didn't keep those from rotating. Now I can't move these guys, and we're getting a little bit closer. Oh, this is going to be yeah, I made a mistake with that bushing. So let's put the bushing in. Remember that bushing is this piece that is that helps you avoid friction. And I should have put it in there before I put in the brace, but I can make the brace invisible, and that'll actually not a bad thing to show you how to do. So let's see. We want the axis of this to match with the axis of this, and apply that. And then that one's pretty straightforward. I just want that face to match the brace. So I want a flush constraint between that and that, and apply that. That's looking good. Now the trick is getting this one in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this guy, I'm going to click Alt-V and make that go away. And then I can better access what I need to see. So if you look over here now, see that how that's not blue anymore. That means that brace is there, it's just not visible. So we're going to constrain. And again, I can use a nice axial constraint like so. And you see that that actually makes that disappear. And you're like, where is my part? And your part, unfortunately, is inside there. There it is. So you have to move some things around to see where that is. And then I'm going to create another constraint where a mated constraint with this surface here and this surface over there. And then I'm going to apply. And then I'm going to cancel out of this and make this visible again. All right, so there we've gotten a good part of the way here. I'm gonna stop this video and make another little short video, and we'll finish this assembly.